In our headlines on this Thursday, March 19th, here in South Korea, Israel strikes Iran's main natural gas field, and in retaliation, Iran attacks energy infrastructures in the Gulf region, pushing global oil prices to over $100 a barrel. Meanwhile, policymakers at the U.S. Federal Reserve announced intentions to maintain their benchmark interest rate at its current level amid rampant uncertainty on the economic front. And here on the local front, the National Assembly is facing a fresh showdown over the ruling Democratic Party's plans for reform of South Korea's prosecutorial system. We start with prospects of additional American troop deployment to the Middle East as the Trump administration reportedly weighs expanding its military campaign against Iran. Now, this is according to Reuters, based on remarks from relevant officials. The main factor behind this latest consideration is reportedly the protection of oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. What's more, efforts to this end may apparently require possible positioning of U.S. soldiers on Iranian shorelines. And the U.S. leader has issued an ultimatum to Iran amid the latter's targeting of energy infrastructures in the Gulf region in response to Israel's strike of its main natural gas field. Our An Sung-jin has the latest.
U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened to blow up Iran's gas processing infrastructure if Tehran continues retaliatory strikes against Qatar. In a post on social media platform Truth Social on Thursday, Trump also stated that there will be no more attacks made by Israel on the South Pars gas field. He said that the U.S. had no prior knowledge of the Israeli attack, which contradicts both Israeli and U.S. officials that stated that Washington had been informed of the plan in advance but was not involved in the operation. His remarks come after Iran retaliated by striking LNG facilities in Qatar, as Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian warned of uncontrollable consequences that could engulf the entire world. Iranian state media reported that Israel struck gas processing infrastructure at the gas field. The strike marks the first time Israel has directly targeted Iran's energy production infrastructure, having previously limited attacks to fuel storage sites. In retaliation, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps gave a list of imminent attacks on energy facilities in Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar, urging evacuations. It then launched a missile strike on a major gas-producing area in Qatar. Saudi Arabia's defense ministry also said that it had intercepted and destroyed 4 ballistic missiles launched toward Riyadh. Global oil prices surged sharply after the attacks on energy infrastructure. May delivery Brent crude futures, a global benchmark, jumped above $111 at 4:48 p.m. Eastern Time. April delivery West Texas Intermediate futures climbed to $100 a barrel. Experts warn that the conflict could further disrupt global energy flows, particularly as the Strait of Hormuz faces effective closure. Roughly 20% of the world's seaborne oil supply passes through the strait. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
And the U.S. president took to his social media platform yet again to reapply pressure on American allies with regard to security of the Strait of Hormuz. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young explains.
US President Donald Trump has renewed pressure on allied countries over the Strait of Hormuz, claiming that those relying on the waterway should be the ones to secure it. Taking to Truth Social on Wednesday, Trump shared a New York Post op-ed titled "US Allies Need to Get a Grip, Step Up and Help Open the Strait of Hormuz." In a separate post, Trump speculated what would happen to the vital shipping route if the US finished off what's left of Iran, saying that this may cause some of America's non-responsive allies to move quickly. The message came after several European countries pushed back against his call to send naval support to reopen the strait, which has been effectively shut down by Iran. While Trump had reacted angrily, saying the United States did not need help from NATO or Asian allies like South Korea, Japan and Australia, his latest post suggests he is still trying to pressure partners into involvement. The Strait of Hormuz carries about a fifth of global oil and petroleum products, making it one of the world's most important energy choke points. While less dependent on Middle East energy, the US has long kept naval forces around the Strait of Hormuz to safeguard commercial shipping and support wider Gulf maritime security. If the seaway passage remains compromised, the shock to the global energy market could be severe, with East Asia especially vulnerable. South Korea and Japan rely on the Middle East for about 70% and 95% of their crude imports respectively. Europe would also feel the strain. A prolonged disruption could raise gas and fuel costs for households, while also pushing up costs for fertilizer and other goods tied to energy-intensive production and shipping. Meanwhile, NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte did not directly address Trump's latest remarks, but indicated European allies are discussing the matter.
When it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, I have been in contact with many allies. We all agree, of course, that strait has to open up again. And what I know is that allies are working together, discussing how to do that. What is the best way to do it? They are working on that collectively to find a way forward.
As Trump presses allies to do more on Hormuz, Thursday's summit with Japan could become an early test as countries in Asia and Europe weigh the energy and economic costs of a longer disruption in the strait. Young, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, policymakers at the U.S. Federal Reserve have announced their intentions to maintain their benchmark interest rate at its current level amid rampant uncertainty on the economic front. Our Lee Sing-jae has more.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has held its benchmark interest rate steady for a second straight meeting, maintaining its projection of one rate cut this year as uncertainty grows over the economic fallout from the ongoing U.S.-Israeli war against Iran. At its two-day Federal Open Market Committee meeting on Wednesday, the central bank decided to keep the federal funds rate unchanged in the 3.5 to 3.75% range.
Today, the FOMC decided to leave our policy rate unchanged. We see the current stance of monetary policy as appropriate to promote progress toward our maximum employment and 2% inflation goals.
The move leaves the interest rate gap between South Korea and the United States at up to 1.25 percentage points. The decision also comes as policymakers face a difficult balancing act. Rising global oil prices are fueling concerns about renewed inflationary pressure, while a weaker U.S. labor market adds to worries about slowing growth. The latest employment report showed the economy lost 92,000 jobs last month. Despite the uncertainty, the Fed's updated median forecast still points to the federal funds rate being lowered to around 3.4% by the end of the year, signaling the possibility of a single quarter percentage point cut in 2026, unchanged from its December outlook. In its statement, the central bank warned that uncertainty about the economic outlook remains elevated, particularly due to developments in the Middle East. Officials said the implications of the conflict for the U.S. economy are unclear, but stressed they are closely monitoring risks to both sides of the Fed's dual mandate of achieving maximum employment and stable inflation at around 2%. Fed Chair Jerome Powell also stressed that higher energy prices are likely to push overall inflation higher in the near term. However, he cautioned that it is still too early to determine how lasting or severe the impact will be. When asked whether the Fed expects the current oil shock to be temporary, Powell said no one can be certain. He noted the economic effects could turn out to be much smaller or significantly larger than anticipated, underscoring the high level of uncertainty facing policymakers. Lee Sing-jae, Arirang News.
The National Assembly here is facing a fresh showdown over plans for reform of South Korea's prosecutorial system. Our political correspondent Moon Hye-ryan covers this latest confrontation.
South Korea's National Assembly has entered a new phase of confrontation as the plenary session gets underway with a filibuster already in progress over a set of contentious prosecution reform bills. Lawmakers began deliberations Thursday afternoon with the ruling Democratic Party moving to put two key bills to a vote: the establishment of a new investigation agency for serious crimes and a separate public prosecution office. The proposed agency would be created under the Interior Ministry, taking over investigations into major crimes such as fraud and capital market violations, as well as crimes committed by officials across investigative and judicial bodies. Ruling party lawmakers argue the reform is essential to completing the long-standing goal of separating investigative and prosecutorial powers.
This prosecution reform bill firmly upholds the core principle of fully separating investigations from prosecutions, including abolishing prosecutors' direct investigative powers while focusing on removing controversial provisions that have raised public concern.
But the opposition strongly disagrees. As the bills were introduced in the chamber, People Power Party lawmakers immediately launched a filibuster. They argue that placing the new agency under the Interior Ministry risks political interference, particularly through personnel control, warning it could turn state investigative power into a tool of the administration.
This is a reckless legislative push that could fundamentally undermine the country's judicial system, stripping investigative agencies of their independence and handing them over to those in power, effectively paving the way for a system that benefits criminals.
Despite the ongoing filibuster, the Democratic Party appears determined to press ahead. Given its parliamentary majority, the ruling bloc is expected to end the debate after 24 hours and proceed with a vote, meaning the first of the bills could pass as early as Friday. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung has called for continued communication among Labour, management and the government to end an unfortunate cycle within the work environment here. Speaking at a meeting with members of the Economic, Social and Labour Council on this Thursday, he pointed out that concerns over job security trigger a defensive stance within regular workers, which in turn prompts management to favour the hiring of non-regular workers and outsourcing. To break this vicious cycle, the President stressed the need for simultaneous advancements in labour market flexibility and social safety nets to ensure that job loss does not immediately threaten livelihood. The number of newlyweds here in South Korea has rebounded to its pre-pandemic standing. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon has those numbers.
South Korea's marriage registrations continued their upward trend in 2025, essentially rebounding to the level of pre-COVID-19 times. According to the Ministry of Data and Statistics on Thursday, roughly 240,000 marriages were registered last year. That is a 8.1% increase from the previous year. Meanwhile, divorces fell 3.3% on year to 88,000. The agency attributes the rise in marriages largely to a demographic shift, with a larger cohort currently entering in their early 30s. It also pointed to a growing positive sentiment toward marriage.
First, there is an increase in the population cohort entering their early 30s. Also, data shows a growing perception among unmarried men and women that they should get married.
This sustained increase in marriages is offering a much-needed boost to the nation's fertility rate, which rebounded to 0.80 in 2025. Because the vast majority of childbirths in South Korea occur within legal marriages, officials say the recent surge in newlyweds is the primary driver behind the rising birth rate.
Marriages grew consecutively for 8 months, starting in August 2022, and again for 21 months from April 2024 to December of last year. This continuous upward trend is highly meaningful. We can view this massive, accumulated increase in marriages as the #1 reason behind the rising fertility rate.
This upward trend in marriages is expected to continue until at least 2027, when babies born in the early 1990s reach prime marrying age. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the forgotten trade of working with our hands is making a comeback among young Koreans as AI threatens office jobs. Our Kim Jun-hong files this report.
Energetic K-pop fills the air at a construction site. Working to the rhythm, Kim Kwang-yeon, now in his 30s, is a fourth-year carpenter. He left behind an 8-year career at a company to begin a completely new chapter.
I worked in sales for years, but felt I had little control over my work and was just draining my energy. That's when I started looking into carpentry to build a skill of my own.
With an average age of 29, Kim's team connects with clients through Instagram, working mainly in trendy districts like Seongsu. They're bringing a fresh, youthful touch to the carpentry scene, redefining blue-collar work once viewed as tough and unappealing. As more young people turn to getting a trade, a quiet shift is taking place on the training floor. This vocational institute in Seoul is now becoming a new path for people in their 20s and 30s. Programs like these were, up until recently, mostly utilized by older people seeking retraining. But the rise in interest from younger individuals is evident in the numbers. In some courses, the proportion of students aged 15 to 39 has increased by nearly 18 percentage points in just 2 years.
Since generative AI really took off in 2023, we've seen more inquiries from young people about technical training. The value of human skills has grown, along with demand for such workers in the industry.
When asked why, many young people here did, in fact, point to artificial intelligence.
I worked at a design company, but after AI emerged, my role shrank noticeably, making me question the sustainability of my career. So I chose welding, as it's harder to replace and a skill I can carry for life.
As the world changes at a rapid pace, young people are carving out new paths. The trend goes beyond personal choice, pointing to underlying dynamics in the labor market.
Jobs in South Korea have become fragmented under a dual labor market, adding to overall instability. Blue-collar work, by contrast, is emerging as a more stable option. Labor is not just about earning a living, but about finding meaning and self-realization. In that sense, blue-collar work holds long-term sustainable potential.
Defined by their boldness and the will to pave their own path, younger workers are taking steps to transform the future of labor. Kim Junong, Arirang News.
In other news now, as fans worldwide await the return of BTS, the title of the group's upcoming album is fueling renewed interest in the Korean word Arirang, which also happens to be the name of the station you're watching. Our Chung Hye-rim reports.
The countdown to BTS's return is almost over, but as the hype builds, the album's title Arirang is drawing attention. For international fans, this single word is sparking curiosity.
Arirang? I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. It's like something to do with traditional music. Traditional Korean music.
So their new album's called Arirang, but I'm not entirely sure what that means. I would assume it's something to do with like unity.
Actually, I heard it's like a folk song of Korea. Because BTS is from Korea, of course they want to show to the world.
During a recent Weverse Life broadcast, the group's leader explained the thought process behind naming their highly anticipated album.
한국을 상징하는 무언가가 같이 들어가면 좋겠다라는 생각을 하다가 이제 아리랑이라는 키워드를 좀 불러오게 되었는데.
With the release of BTS's latest album on Friday, many fans are wondering what Arirang actually means. So, what is the story behind this iconic melody?
Simply put, Arirang is Korea's most famous traditional folk song. But for Koreans, it is much more than just that. Passed down orally through generations with countless regional variations, the song carries the universal emotions of Han, a deep sense of sorrow, and Hung, a resilient joy.
Arirang is a song that symbolizes Korean culture and has been with us throughout our history and lives. It was the song our people sang to endure hardships in unfamiliar environments abroad. You could say this historical experience has led to our deep affection for it.
What makes Arirang meaningful today is that it is no longer just a song of the past, but is being rediscovered and reinterpreted by a new generation. Experts say BTS is playing a crucial role in this ongoing evolution.
BTS's choice of Arirang is an example of modernly expanding its value through music that resonates across race, culture, and social status.
From a song rooted in Korea's past to a symbol reaching audiences worldwide, Arirang is once again finding new meaning today. Chung Hye-rim, Arirang News.
And in line with preparations for the much-anticipated BTS comeback concert at Gwanghwamun Square here in Seoul this Saturday, Korea's telecom companies are taking measures to better accommodate a potential surge in data traffic in the area. Our Park Jun-han has details.
Cell site technicians are deploying a temporary mobile cell site.
The vehicle, designed to enhance internet connectivity and support spikes in network traffic, is being set up in preparation for BTS' comeback concert on Saturday. Unlike other large gatherings with relatively low or non-essential internet use, this concert is expected to generate exceptionally high data use in a concentrated area. In particular, data traffic is likely to surge in and around the stage due to a spike in photo and video uploads, while data use may also rise outside as people watch live streams.
We saw reports that many foreign tourists would be attending, so we also analyzed roaming usage rates. We've modeled scenarios for up to 260,000 visitors and then designed a network accordingly, so we're confident people will be able to use telecom services without disruption.
On top of that, the three major mobile carriers said they will actively implement AI systems when providing network services to better distribute traffic. An expert said Korea's telecommunications service is already world-class, capable of handling concentrated traffic.
I think Korea's telecommunications technology, especially on the operational side, is among the best in the world. So the amount of bandwidth available per person is already quite high. And in terms of handling dense traffic, I believe we are far more capable than many other countries.
While BTS takes the spotlight, these unsung heroes keep the connection seamless so fans can fully enjoy the moment. The concert at Gangwon Square is also a real-world testbed for Korea's telecom capabilities. Don't worry, BTS fans. Whether you're among the 22,000 concert-goers or watching from outside the venue, telecom companies have your fast on-site internet connection covered. 박준환, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. The top U.S. intelligence official says that Iran's government remains intact but significantly weakened. During a Senate Intelligence Committee hearing in Washington on Wednesday, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard stated that U.S. strikes last year obliterated Iran's nuclear program with no signs of reconstruction. However, Gabbard repeatedly declined to disclose whether the intelligence community warned President Trump about the possible fallout of the current war, including the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. The testimony follows the resignation of counterterrorism chief Joe Kent, who argued that Iran posed no imminent threat. Gabbard said that defining an imminent threat remains the president's sole responsibility. The Senegalese government is calling for an independent international investigation into suspected corruption within African football's governing body. The demand follows a ruling by the Confederation of African Football, or CAF, on Tuesday, which stripped Senegal of its 2025 Africa Cup of Nations title and awarded it to Morocco. Although Senegal won the January final 1-0 on the pitch, CAF overturned the result, ruling it a forfeiture because Senegalese players staged a 17-minute walk-off to protest a stoppage time penalty. The Senegalese Football Federation on Wednesday filed an appeal with the Court of Arbitration for Sport, labeling the decision a, quote, grossly illegal breach of trust. U.S. President Donald Trump has sparked international debate after suggesting statehood for Venezuela following their World Baseball Classic semifinal victory. After Venezuela defeated Italy 4-2 in Miami on Monday to advance to the final against Team USA, Trump posted on Truth Social questioning if, quote, statehood number 51 was the, quote, magic behind the country's recent changes. The comment follows dramatic shifts in U.S. relations with Venezuela, which included a military operation that captured Nicolas Maduro and the reopening of the U.S. Embassy in Caracas. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
As the rain clears, we're seeing brighter skies return, along with a gradual rise in temperatures. Daytime's high will reach around 15 degrees, bringing around a large day-to-night temperature difference. However, during this seasonal transition, large day-to-night temperature differences can weaken your immune system. So be sure to dress in layers and stay hydrated when heading outdoors. Tomorrow morning will be similar to today, with chilly conditions in inland areas hovering around 0 degrees Celsius. Seoul will start the day at 2 degrees, Chuncheon at -1 degrees, Daegu at 0 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 14 degrees, Chuncheon at 15 degrees, Busan at 16 degrees. For now, no rain is expected, and we'll continue to see spring-like weather throughout the week. That's all for Korea. Here's a look at the weather around the world.
Right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. As always, thank you for watching.